Dear Igor Sergeyevich, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the multifaceted development of the relations with the Chinese People's Republic is definitely an external political priority for Russia, and we consider the conference, which has been organized together with the Russian-Chinese Committee for Friendship and Development of this second conference, Russia and China towards the new quality in bilateral relations, as a very good opportunity for the analysis of the current status and the future for the strengthening of the bilateral relations and its effect over the global politics and economics. Today, the international relations are upon a principally new historic phase, which is related to the establishment of polis-centric world order, the kind of system which reflects both the strengthening of the new centers of economic development and influence, and the cultural civilizational diversity of the modern world, and a natural ambition on the part of the nations to determine their fate themselves. These processes are developing not in a linear way. They are facing many obstacles, the most important of which is an ability on the part of some nations to heed of the single polar concept, and by any attempts to preserve that and force their will, their values upon all the means available. Under such conditions, it's difficult to overestimate the important role of the Chinese-Russian partnership, which has acquired a truly strategic nature in the cause of supporting global and regional security and stability, in the cause of creating the kind of an architecture of the global governance, which is the call of today. The relations between our two nations were the best throughout the history, represent a specimen of the intergovernmental cooperation in the 21st century. And these relations suppose not quieting down of different issues which so far are not the subject of consensus, but open, comradely, honest discussion of those for the purpose of achieving mutually acceptable agreements. And throughout all of the issues which surface within such a concept, such agreements are being reached. And I do believe that this is very logical, because in the foundation at work is equality, respect, trust, and taking into account key interests of each other, which all relies upon mutual sympathy that we have toward each other. So I do say that we have things to be proud of in terms of the legal environment, which encompasses almost all the areas of mutual cooperation. Its main principles and areas have been written into the agreement on good neighborly relations and cooperation of 16th of July 2001. This agreement this year will have 15 years, and the issues of the Chinese-Russian border have been fully regulated. We have a very effective functioning of the multi-level mechanisms of the political dialogue, which includes annual exchange on the part of the heads of state, regular meetings between the head of the government, which are preceded by the sessions of the 4 intergovernmental commissions at the level of vice premiers, and the structure of the commissions which support the work of the annual meetings of prime ministers. They include 19 subsectoral commissions. We have established the cooperation between the presidential administration and the administration of the Central Party Committee of China. On a systemic basis, we are maintaining interparliamentary exchange, holding consultations on strategic security in cooperation in the area of law and justice. More intense are interregional connections, contact between the political parties and the civil society representatives. On a regular basis, we are holding joint military and marine exercises. China is the key trade and economic partner of Russia. In our agenda, as you know, there is an implementation of the task set forth by the leaders of the two countries, which is raising the bilateral turnover by 2020 to the level of $200 billion. This is the kind of a target which, under the current situation, to many may seem a little bit over the top, but I am convinced that despite all of the subjective problems which we face in the economy, this is something that remains the achievable ambition. Nevertheless, the most important prerequisite for success, switching over to the new model of economic cooperation, which would rely itself upon closer manufacturing links and investment relations. We count upon deepening of interaction between the banking institutions in China and Russia, as well as within the framework of recently created multilateral financial institutions as the Asia Bank for Infrastructural Investments, the new Bank for Development within BRICS, and the Eurasian Development Bank. The cementing role within the Chinese-Russian partnership is the cooperation in the energy sector in all of its categories, including the nuclear one. We're consistently moving towards the establishment of a strategic energy alliance called upon to facilitate the strengthening of the global energy security overall. A great importance we attribute to the expansion of the humanitarian connections. Currently, we are holding the years of media of the two countries, whereupon we see the possibilities of further strengthening of mutual understanding and partnership between the corresponding community and overall between the civil society, representatives of the civil society, China and Russia. Our nations were allies during the Second World War, having taken the brunt of the aggressor impact and having lost the biggest amount of lives. So the further strengthening between the China and Russia's relations is the intention to stand by the truth of those years, to combat the attempts to falsify history, rehabilitate fascism and militarism. An eloquent example of our cooperation and our solidarity is the participation of the Chairman Xi Jinping in May 2015 during the 70th anniversary of the victory in the Second World War that Russia had, and participation of President Putin in the Jubilee events dedicated to the 70th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese people in the resistance war against Japan. An important component in the Russian-Chinese strategic partnership is a very close coordination in the foreign political area. And this kind of coordination, by the way, is not aimed against any third countries. With satisfaction, we state that our approaches to vital global and regional issues in many ways do coincide. In some cases are very close to each other. Russia and China are very resilient proponents of collective initiatives in international relations, relying upon international law, in the first place the Charter of the United Nations. We are consistently combat dictatorship and the application of the dual standard practices in attempt to intervene in the internal affairs of sovereign nations. We effectively cooperate in the United Nations and within other multilateral platforms within the G20 group, the summit of which is going to be held in Hangzhou in the Shanghai Organization for Cooperation within BRICS, and the Triangle of India, Russia and China. Our countries are standing by the strengthening of stability in the Asia-Pacific and the establishment of reliable mechanisms of ensuring security, equal and undisputable security, which the mechanisms for which would be founded upon extra bloc approaches. This is the kind of a task that in September 2010, Russia and China's initiative was aimed for security and safety in cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region. Bearing in mind the principles that were written into China and Russia together with Brunei have come out with the proposition to start building the kind of regional architecture which would be compliant with the modern reality, and this proposition was supported during the 8th Eastern Asian Summit in October 2013. And as part of the mechanism of the Asian summits, there have been already 4 rounds of consultations about this particular proposal, and the 5th round is planned in Beijing, where we will continue discussing the initiatives aimed at forming this new security architecture and cooperation in Asia-Pacific. We have reached principal agreement between ourselves in searching for the ways of a cohesion between the Eurasian integration in the format of the Eurasian Economic Union and the Chinese project, which is the economic Silk Road Belt. In the joint statement by Russia and China, which was done at the summit level on May 8th in 2015, there is a single vision of the modality of such work on a bilateral and multilateral basis for the interests of ensuring a consistent and stable development in the region that I have referred to. By way of the key target, we have defined an access to the joint common economic space simultaneously within the Eurasian Economic Commission. We have started preparing a treaty on trade and economic cooperation between the Eurasian Economic Union and China, as well as putting together a roadmap for priority integrational projects within this format. We are considering this work both within the context of promoting the initiative by President Putin on starting consultations between the Eurasian Economic Union countries, the Shanghai Organization for Cooperation, and ASEAN for the development of a broad economic partnership based upon the principle of equality and mutual respect respect of each other's interests. The Jubilee Russia-ASEAN summit, which recently was held in Sochi, showed that the members of the association accepted this idea with great interest. Of course, it is being discussed, it is being paid attention to, against the backdrop of the processes that Mr. Ivanov referred to. I mean the American initiative on building up the transatlantic partnership along with transatlantic trade and investment partnership. These two partnerships that we are referring to, and which are the initiatives by the United States, have been conceived as a narrow circle of member founding countries which define all of the rules within this narrow circle, and the rest of the countries may join, but on the basis of the rules which have been formed without their involvement. We are approaching in promoting this initiative of broad economic partnership with the participation of the SOC, ASEAN, and Eurasian Economic Union countries based on a more democratic principles, bearing in mind that no kind of limitations upon joining this process are being set forth, and we hope that an open nature of our initiative would enable to ensure its effectiveness and, most importantly, its ability to target the interest of all of the stakeholder countries. And together with the Chinese friends, we would enable others to undertake the necessary steps to take our partnership up to the new levels for the benefit of both nations and strengthening the principles of equality and justice in the international arena. I'm sure that the forthcoming visit by President Putin to China will set forth a powerful impetus to the development of the Chinese-Russian multifaceted partnership, will be conducive to the further implementation of its inexhaustible, truly inexhaustible potential. In conclusion, I would like to express my appreciation to the Russian International Affairs Council and Mr. Ivanov for the organization of this forum and overall for a very useful, great job that the members of the Council are doing to promote Russian-Chinese strategic partnership. Thank you very much.